Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, this is going to be another episode of the Cycle Starter series where we take a character from level 1 and push it to around 300-ish corruption and soul character found to figure out if the build can be cycle starterable, see its cycle starter capabilities, see if it's strong, if it's weak, how does it feel, how expensive is it, and this time around it's going to be Multishot Marksman. So the reason why I'm even playing Multishot and Marksman again, even though I played Marksman last time, is because of a comment on the last Epoch Discord where Mike was talking to someone and he was like, hey, which skill did you think did not get enough representation this patch? And he was like, multi-shot. I'm like, you know what? That's actually a good excuse to play multi-shot, because that is true. Not many people play multi-shot. Now, there are a few reasons for that, but we'll get into that later. But essentially, I was like, hey, I want to play multi-shot. Let's play it again. I haven't played a real multi-shot build, so like I've only played Reign of Winter, but I wanted to play one that wasn't the the flurry version, because I'll be honest, standing still in an RPG is the equivalent of stapling my balls to the side of the wall. So I would rather actually play the game and, move around while I actually attack. So that's why we wanted to do self-cast multi-shot. So if you haven't already, I would heavily suggest leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me, and it also tells me that you want more videos like this one. Now, with all that being said, let's go into the character, shall we? So the idea is Multishot Marksman. Now, Marksman has had a few changes over the past few cycles or patches. That is because recently they nerfed critical vulnerability. So if you don't know, it's an ailment that allowed you to reach crit cap without investing too hard into crit. And most bow builds relied upon this to actually crit cap themselves because of the fact of the lack of base bow crit that exists everywhere in skills and just generally everywhere. And thankfully, right after that patch, they introduced the hybrid mod that gives you crit chance and bow attack speed. But the biggest problem with this and this, marksman in general, is all of the good bows like the Drellcore's compasses, the Reign of Winters, the Dragon Songs, they are all unique. So to get this base crit, you would have to make an LP bow, drop it, right? Then you have to slam the hybrid mod. Hopefully you drop a hybrid mod with Exalted, hopefully, right? And then you slam it and hit it, which makes it very bad for cycle starting, because why would I do that when I could play this or that build, or maybe bleed Hail of Arrows or something, which would probably be a really good marksman build soon here. So why would I play crit multi-shot when that's really hard to get done? Well, it turns out we have a bone, we have a way of fixing this, and that is mainly due to Smoke Bomb. Smoke Bomb recently got a change where they added a node that halves its cooldown but gives it the traversal tag. So this sounds very bad in the beginning because you're not using shift, and shift is a very strong skill, mind you. But it turns out Smoke Bomb is also a very strong skill when it's on a 5-second cooldown or less if you scale cooldown recovery speed. That is because not only do you get the defensive benefit uptime of Dust Shrouds from the Dust Shroud node, you also get access to more Silver Shrouds every 5 seconds. Turns out more Silver Shrouds is better than having Shuriken uptime for the armor, because just not getting hit in the first place is better than mitigating that hit, obviously, right? But the biggest thing with Smoke Bomb as a traversal skill is you get access and have more uptime on the 10% base crit while you are sitting inside Smoke Bomb. This means that we can use whatever bow we want early on and still play a bow crit build. We can utilize a Peak of the Mountain to cap our crit very easily, which I did manage to get one with 2 LP, and I slammed it, and it was an okay roll. It missed the +2 to multi-shot, but it's not a big deal. But this allows us to actually play a crit hit marksman without having to slam a bow. Now, you must be thinking, well, Dread, why don't you just slam a bow afterwards, right? And then you don't have to use a Smoke Bomb traversal. It turns out you don't really want to do that. That's mainly because, you can get some really disgusting modifiers on your bow. You can get, Exalted flat damage. You can get crit multi, crit chance, and, of course, the Exalted bow attack speed. So you don't really want to be wasting that modifier for base crit, right? So you can run a Drellcore's Compass with flat physical and flat like in exalted bow attack speed, and that would probably be way more preferable. And to deal with this little like side problem where we have to stand inside of the smoke bomb, it's not really a big deal. Now, one thing I will note is smoke bomb is bugged visually. So if you see in the footage, you see the smoke bomb is like a small circle. That's actually not the AoE of the smoke bomb. I tested it multiple times. The AoE actually still grows, and it's like the normal smoke bomb, but for some reason it just has like that small area for the animation for the traversal version. But trust me, it is working. It's just you have to get used to it and get the feel of like where the center of the smoke bomb is and stay inside of it. But as you can see, I'm doing a much more active playstyle where I'm doing a bunch of shoot, move, shoot, move, shoot, move. And that's very easy to do inside the area of the smoke bomb, because not only does it, give you a lot of defensive benefits with the dust shrouds, but like it's just overall just a very good experience. I've noticed, like, sure, like you gotta be more active than like some other versions of marksman that are out there, but it's really rewarding in general, just because of just how it feels, like the moment to moment gameplay, very actiony. Now, some other things that we do, we go for Giant Slayer, of course, in Multishot, where we have a bunch of different projectiles. We also grab the node that gives us point blank, a little bit of extra more damage against close enemies, and all of that makes Multishot hit like a truck on single target, and the clear is good enough. It's not nowhere near as good as Blast Rain, but Blast Rain's probably going to get nuked to the 9 hells soon, so it's like fine. This is like what I would call like a balanced skill in that regard. Now, one last thing I want to talk about before we go into the in-depth gameplay, and we talk about the build more, is the fact that I'm using Dark Quiver. Dark Quiver is normally a bad skill, but it turns out when you're running around a bunch trying to sit inside your smoke bomb, you have a lot of time to pick up a bunch of Dark Quivers. I mean, like the arrows. And normally that wouldn't be very good, but there's a node inside the Dark Quiver that gives you like 5 Dust Shroud stacks per time you pick up one of them. And in the middle of combat, that means you also get dodge capped and glancing blow capped. And it ended up making my character feel significantly tankier than without doing the little combo of like moving around on the arrows. And it was nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be, because, we all think Dark Quiver is bad, but the reason why it didn't feel nowhere near as bad is because there's a node that gives you 5 instant arrows as soon as you click the button. And that has enabled this to actually function pretty well, because like you see the arrows instantly, and as I'm stutter stepping to get arrows, like it doesn't feel as bad. It's just like you just have to like kind of like plan your route ahead of time and pick up arrows as you're shooting and stuff. And what's really cool about the Dark Quiver as well is we only have 2 nodes into the Pierce and Multishot, but we actually grab the node inside Dark Quiver that gives your Multishot, the next like bow attack Multishot, plus 2 Pierce. So we pierce 4 enemies at once, and it ends up making the clear feel significantly better. So Black Quiver is actually a usable skill. Who would have thought, right? I'm surprised. But yeah, that's going to be it for the intro today. Let's go in game and talk about the build more in detail, shall we? All right, here we're in game with the character. Let's talk about skills real quick, shall we? So for Multishot here, Multishot's one of those weird skills where you kind of have to like have the perfect distribution of points to make it feel good. So pay attention as we're talking about this, because this is very, very important, because we need all the modifiers we can get to make Multishot compete in the new last Epoch patch. So we, of course, grab the 60% more damage against slowed targets. We do have a quiver that slows enemies. I would suggest having a spider silk quiver, because they just buffed it to give you more damage against slowed enemies, which is amazing. Then we also grab 2 points here, large quiver. The extra arrows are great because we're using a drill course and we're shotgunning with Giant Slayer. Now, this stun chance is very strong. You end up stunning enemies very quickly. Now, of course, stun might get nerfed next patch, at least for pinnacle bosses, so I would not rely upon this for bosses like Orbis and stuff like that. But for clear, it feels amazing to stun a group of enemies and be able to just pelt them with arrows. 1 point travel into efficient draw, 1 point into strong pull. Strong pull is really strong. So what this does is it reduces the amount of attacks you do over a period of time, but it doesn't reduce your damage. So what this means is we're spending less mana overall, because we're attacking less, but getting the same amount of value per click. It also upfronts your damage. So instead of having to shoot like 2 to 3 times to kill an enemy, it usually takes like maybe 2 shots to kill an enemy with strong pull. So this actually ends up being very strong. Also, as well, as we get more attack speed, the less it feels bad, right? So strong pull, really good node. Then we go down here to get piercing shots, of course, so that, you know, our build actually functions in monos. Pierce is very strong. Then back to back and repeater bow, these 3 nodes in succession is about 25% more damage, but it's also really good for applying more ailments on targets, like on clear and stuff like that. So repeater is very strong as well. Then we have 1 point to point blank. I have tested this build. I've tested multiple different ways of playing multi-shot, and I found that you need point blank for extra single target, but you can't put too many points into point blank because it's too severe. So what point blank does here is enemies that are near, we kill faster, and enemies that are far away, they don't kill as fast, but they're still getting stun locked, so it's nowhere near as bad, right? Having like a little bit like less than 25%, right? This node here is like amazing for single target, especially when you go up against like bosses in the Monolith of Fate. And that's pretty much it for multi-shot. Puncture, all we care about is the mana, the frenzy, and the extra attack speed, and the fizz shred as well for extra fizz shred on targets. We don't actually use puncture that much anymore. We have a decent amount of mana regen, and our multi-shot doesn't cost that much mana, but we do every so often need to utilize puncture to get a bunch of mana back quickly. But thankfully it has an insane amount of attack speed, insane amount of mana return, so it's not that bad using puncture. Then decoy is just your stereotypical decoy setup. We're just using it as a crit multi steroid, getting some dodge as well, right? And it helps us set up a pack so we can actually kill them properly. Because sometimes you'll end up in a monolith where there's like 3 diamond matrons, and you just kind of want to like pop a decoy to make sure, you know, they're fighting the decoy instead of you. Then Dark Quiver here. This actually ended up being way stronger than I thought it was going to be, mainly because of Nightfall, getting the Dust Shroud stacks. If I'm moving around a bunch of stuff in my Smoke Bomb, being able to grab even more Dust Shroud stacks is great. Getting the extra 2 pierces with multi-shot felt really good as well. And then, you know, 20 extra flat damage here is like, it's like okay. Then the 5 instant arrows, this is what made Dark Quiver playable for me, because being able to see them instantly instead of having them fall over the duration was significantly better than like any other way of playing Dark Quiver. I'm going to be using this node from now on in every Dark Quiver build I use. Like, this node is insane. It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Being able to instantly see the arrows as soon as you press the button feels significantly better than I ever thought it could be. We don't grab the extra mana consumed stuff. That's mainly because like multi-shot costs enough mana as it is, so we don't want to like spend too much mana. Now, Smoke Bomb, this is very, very important, so listen up. We need Cloaked Incursion to reduce the cooldown, like I said. We need the duration, so it lasts as long as the duration of the cooldown of Smoke Bomb. You can give it more uptime if you get some cooldown recovery speed on your gear. We need Shadow Hunter. This is what enables the build to function, mainly because of the 10% base crit. Without it, it would be unplayable. Be absolutely unplayable, like multi-shot this early without base crit. And of course, Moonlight Bomb here for the Silver Shroud stacks to dodge the next attack. This just makes you feel so much tankier, especially on bosses. There's been a few times where I felt like, oh no, I'm gonna die, and I don't, because Moonlight Bomb is so freaking strong. Being able to get a Silver Shroud every 5 seconds on top of the other Silver Shroud that you get in Marksman's Tree here, every like, I think it's like, where is it? It's like every 10 seconds. Like, those two combined like made me feel so much tankier. I don't even have that much armor. All I had was dodge and glancing blow, and I still felt pretty tanky because of how much Silver Shroud generation that we had. And of course, here we go with area and growth speed. Like I said, you couldn't see in the footage, but the Smoke Bomb was reaching a big part of the screen, which gave me a lot of room to move around and stuff like that. And of course, Shrouded in Darkness is very strong. One thing I would suggest actually is on your chest, instead of dexterity, or, you know, either way, I would get like +2 to Smoke Bomb. That's really good because you can grab extra nodes in rapid concealment or whatever, maybe monkey around with the nodes, mess around with them. If you get more cooldown, you can maybe take points out of duration, but getting points into rapid concealment would be great because getting more dust shrouds is great because having that dodge and the cleansing blow really smooths out your end game experience with this build. And that's pretty much it for skills. Let's talk about passives that are important. Mainly, just getting as much dexterity as possible because we are playing with Morning Frost, as we need the flat damage. Just give you an idea of Morning Frost, 2400, 1600. Morning Frost is very important for the build scaling. It makes it so that your multi-shot actually hits like a truck. And like I said, you get all this dexterity. So not only is the dexterity giving you 288% increased damage, it's also giving you 72 flat damage. And since all your damage scaling is generic, you don't have to be shred to care about or anything like that, you can just add as much flat as you want from any source. And that's pretty much it for that, like, for dexterity stacking. Like, you just want to go grab the dexterity here eventually as well. Grabbing the dexterity in Blade Dancer as well is great, but that's like mainly just like as much dexterity as possible. Now for nodes up here, we mainly want these nodes here for the armor shred, the bow damage percentage, all the extra crit chance here helping us cap our crit chance. The +4 projectiles is really good as well because of course we're using a Drelkors and of course Giant Slayer, so you get like I think like 18 arrows per cast or something like that. That's really good. That's pretty much it for passives that like matter. Let's talk about gearing. First, blessings. Actually, for blessings, eventually you want crit multi or void res here, either way. Here you want resistance, lightning res probably. Here, crit avoid, of course, armor, and then armor percent. I do have physical res here because it's helping me cap my physical res, but eventually you'd want to go with armor percent. That's pretty much it for the blessings here. Let's talk about the gearing. Mandatory pieces. So it's not mandatory. I was able to play the build without it, but you want to beeline for a Drelkor's Compass as fast as possible. You want to literally try to get a Drelkor's, whether that means use all your runes of ascendance, use all of your favor to get it, whatever you end up doing, literally just force the Drelkor's. And then once you force the Drelkors, the build like becomes online and it feels significantly better. You can use a Reign of Winter. Reign of Winter is a useful alternative until you get access to Drelkors, but Drelkors is of course the better option in the end, because you know the minus mana cost makes your multi-shot mana feel good. Also as well, it gives you the +4 projectiles. So this with LP as well would be really good. You want like flat bow damage, bow attack speed. The other items that aren't mandatory but you eventually want is Peak of the Mountain. You don't need this early on because you can just grab like crit chance here. Like there's a bunch of crit chance to grab everywhere, but this just makes it so you have a bunch of extra passives to utilize. You don't have to actually force too many passives into crit chance, right? Of course, I got one with LP, dexterity, and healing. Health. Eventually, you'd want +4 to multi-shot. That would be the preferable affix to have, as multi-shot has a lot of nodes that we could utilize. That would be better. Like for instance, Stand My Ground would be really good. There's like a lot of nodes that you could use in multi-shot tree to make it feel better. Then for other items, of course, Morning Frost. Early on, you don't need this, but like you just use it whenever you get it. It is a very big damage steroid, but you do have to gear towards it and getting a bunch of dexterity. And of course, you also have to cap your resistances. All of my gear is like my idols are focused on capping my reses because of Morning Frost, as you can tell, but is definitely worth it. That flat damage steroid is worth it. And of course, I hit movement speed. It's the first time I've actually hit movement speed on Morning Frost. I'm so happy. Then of course, other mandatory items. It's not mandatory per se, but like this Spider Silk Quiver has been pretty good. The 8% more damage to slowed enemies on top of the slow and hit, on top of like all the other, like it's really good. Spider Silk Quivers are like what you need to beeline towards for this setup. Now for other items here, on her chest, dexterity, arrow with multi-shot. You really want the arrow with multi-shot. This gives us a large amount of increased damage. So here, 2400. 1400. Of course, it's not exactly that much damage because we also have in Marksman here, we have all this extra percent damage scaling, but it is a very large amount of damage. Then HP. Then for our amulet here, we have crit chance, crit multi, fizz, res, frailty. Eventually, you'd want HP there as well. Rings here. I actually got a rune of creation, and I made this ring, and I doubled it. And that saved me so much effort and time. Obviously, you won't be able to do this randomly. It's just I got very lucky when I was able to rune of creation this ring. It feels really good to have double HP, double cold res rolls, the regen, the dexterity. Like essentially, this is like your best in slot ring for the most part. Like I wouldn't change it at all. Belt here, percent damage, mana regen, HP. That poison res is like okay, but it could be better. You obviously want HP there. You'd obviously also want it on the Praetorian belt base for more flat armor, but I never dropped anything that could be useful. Gloves here, crit chance, dexterity would be good. HP, pretty good other than that. Relic here on a better base, but HP, resistance, dexterity, mana regen. The reason why we want as much mana regen as possible is it makes it so that we can spam our abilities like our Dark Quiver or Smoke Bomb and Multishot and Decoy without needing to constantly spam Puncture, so we can spend more time shooting with Multishot. So mana regen is really good for this character. That's because we have a lot of percent damage scaling from dexterity, and we also have all of our crit capped, and we also have a lot of percent damage scaling from sharpshooter. So that means all of our affixes can be dedicated towards mana regen and dexterity, which is wonderful, by the way, being able to do that. But yeah. Then for idols, of course, the percent damage per arrow with multi-shot, we have a lot of arrows, so these are preferable versus anything else. Then the rest is just resistance rolls. And that's pretty much it for the character. That's pretty much it for the build. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go on the next character. Bye.